Every gardener who's ever struck a shovel into clay knows that stubborn resistance, the dull thunk instead of a satisfying slice. It's heavy, sticky when wet, hard as stone when dry, and it strangles roots like a vice. Most people reach for the tiller or try to break it up with brute force, but that only makes things worse in the long run. The real solution isn't mechanical, it's biological. Worms can replace tilling entirely, even in dense clay beds. Once you understand how to invite them, feed them and sustain them, they'll do the digging, aerating and soil turning for you, quietly, efficiently and permanently. Let's get into the science and the exact method to make it work. Before we talk about worms, it's important to understand why traditional tilling fails, especially in clay soils. Tilling might make soil look fluffy at first, but it destroys the microscopic aggregates, the clumps of minerals, organic matter, and microbial life that create natural structure. Once those are broken, the clay recompacts quickly after rain, sealing the surface like concrete. Over time, that leads to water runoff, reduced oxygen, and declining fertility. Nature never tills. Forests, meadows, and riverbanks renew their soil through biology, not machinery. The key player in that process is the humble worm. When we stop disturbing the soil and start feeding it right, worms begin to rebuild the natural architecture we destroyed. In a matter of months, they can transform lifeless, compacted clay into a loose, breathing medium capable of supporting deep-rooted crops. When worms move through soil, they create permanent tunnels lined with mucus, which prevents them from collapsing. These burrows act like miniature irrigation pipes and airways. As worms eat decomposing matter and mineral particles, they digest and excrete it as castings. Tiny pellets packed with nutrients, beneficial microbes, and stable organic carbon. This continuous activity mimics and honestly even exceeds traditional tilling. Instead of turning the soil just once a season, worms are at it daily, working layer by layer without disturbing the structure or the microbiome. In clay beds, this is absolutely crucial, because worm burrows naturally prevent waterlogging and compaction. Now, red wigglers and European nightcrawlers are the champions here. Red wigglers, or Eisenia foetida, work the upper 6 inches of soil, breaking down surface compost, while nightcrawlers, Lumbricus terrestris, drill deep vertical tunnels that can reach up to 3 feet. Together they create a living, self-maintaining tilling system. If your clay soil is compacted and lifeless, worms won't just appear. You have to build an environment they can survive in. Start by spreading a 2 to 3 inch layer of organic matter over your bed. Use a mix of half compost and half shredded leaves, grass clippings, or aged manure. Water it lightly so it's damp but not soggy. Then add about 1 pound of worms per 10 square feet of garden bed. That's roughly 50 to 100 worms per square metre, enough to establish a thriving colony. The trick is not to bury them, just let them crawl into the soil on their own. They'll find the softest pathways, often following root channels and small cracks, and begin aerating from there. For heavy clay, you can pre-soak the surface with a calcium and humic acid solution, a method we've discussed in previous Hydrohaven guides, a week before adding worms. This softens the top layer just enough for them to penetrate. Keep the surface mulched at all times. Worms feed at the interface between organic matter and mineral soil, so mulch isn't just cover, it's their dining table. Use straw, chopped leaves, or even cardboard. The mulch keeps moisture consistent and provides a steady food supply. Once the worms are active, they need a steady diet to sustain population growth. Clay soil itself offers minerals, but not enough organic food. The simplest feeding routine involves adding a thin layer, about ½ an inch, of compost or kitchen scraps every 2 weeks under your mulch. Avoid citrus, onions, and too much meat. If you want to accelerate worm multiplication, sprinkle a small handful of worm castings or finished compost every week. It seeds beneficial microbes that the worms thrive on. You'll know the system is working when you start seeing granular soil texture forming around the base of plants. Those tiny dark pellets are worm castings, rich in calcium, nitrogen, and enzymes. For smaller beds, manual worm introduction and surface feeding work perfectly. But if you're managing larger garden plots, you can create worm corridors. These are vertical compost columns that act as worm hotels and food stations. To make one, drill holes into a 4-inch PVC pipe, bury it halfway into the soil and fill it with moist organic matter like vegetable scraps, coffee grounds and leaf mulch. The worms enter through the holes, feed and disperse nutrients throughout the surrounding soil. Space these every 3 to 4 feet across your bed for balanced activity. You can also seed worm colonies naturally by applying vermicompost tea, a liquid extract of worm castings diluted at a 1:10 ratio with non-chlorinated water. Pour it over your beds every month. It introduces beneficial bacteria and stimulates worm activity, especially after rainfall. The biggest difference between mechanical tilling and worm-driven tilling is sustainability. Machines break soil apart. Worms build it up. Over time, your clay soil transitions into a loam-like structure with visible aggregates, rich in microbial life and organic carbon. You'll notice improved drainage, fewer weeds, and plants with stronger root systems. Crops like tomatoes, carrots and beans begin to thrive without struggling against compaction. Because worm tunnels persist year-round, they also help prevent erosion and flooding by channeling rainwater deeper. When the soil can breathe and absorb water effectively, you get resilience, not just fertility. Worms can truly replace tilling entirely, even in the toughest clay beds. All it takes is patience, consistent feeding, and the right surface management. They'll build the structure, balance the moisture, and maintain the fertility better than any tool or tractor could. So, instead of firing up the tiller this season, start feeding your soil and let the worms do the digging. It's quieter, cleaner, and infinitely more sustainable. If this guide gave you real value, don't forget to subscribe to Hydro Haven for more regenerative gardening techniques that work with nature, not against it. Share this video with another grower dealing with hard clay, because the solution isn't deeper digging, it's deeper understanding.